This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. Well, you asked for it, Amy, not our listeners, and you may or may not be happy with getting it. Yesterday, when we were reminding people of El Gallito's statement in response to the announcement on DACA this week that General Kelly, a Gold Star father, is a disgrace to the uniform he used to wear. The suggestion was made, maybe a tribute to El Gallito.
Yeah, we also coupled it with the fact that Hurricane Irma hit Puerto Rico. That's where he's from, and he should donate money. And Despacito, the song came from Puerto Rico. And ready? This is Justin, our technical director.
This is a democracy, and we will make democracy work.
El Gallito. This is how we do it in the Hillies 4th District. Just another Democrat unrealistic. I want to hear you scream impeach 45. El Gallito.
And Justin has now been relieved of his position as our technical producer.
Woo, that was so bad it's good.
We'll take submissions from people who can sing as well. I mean, the lyrics weren't bad. You know, it's a start.
Gallito. This is how we do it down in the 4th Congressional District.
It doesn't rhyme perfectly.
Doesn't rhyme.
Yeah, I got that. That's why I said there's room for improvement.
Okay,
but
maybe if we do it in Spanish.
All right, now on a more serious note, Steve Bannon sat down with Charlie Rose for a 60 Minutes interview that'll air Sunday. Of course, CBS teasing out some of the juicier bites, including Bannon talking DACA.
Look what he did on DACA the other day. Okay, I don't agree with that DACA decision, but I understand how he struggled with it. I understand how he's giving a possibility of a legislative thing, and he said even last night in a tweet, he would rethink it. Trust me, the guys on the far right, the guys on the conservative side are not happy with this.
Can I remind you, a good Catholic, that Cardinal Dolan is opposed to what's happening with DACA? Cardinal Dolan.
The Catholic Church has been terrible about this.
Okay, fair enough.
The bishops have been terrible about this. By the way, you know why? Because unable to really to come to grips with the problems in the church, they need illegal aliens. They need illegal aliens to fill the churches. It's obvious on the face of it. That's what the entire Catholic bishops condemning. They have an economic interest. They have an economic interest in unlimited immigration, unlimited illegal immigration. And as much as
Boy, that's a tough thing to say about your church.
As much as I respect Cardinal Dolan and the bishops on doctrine, this is not doctrine. This is not doctrine at all. I totally respect the Pope, and I totally respect the Catholic bishops and cardinals on doctrine. This is not about doctrine. This is about the sovereignty of a nation. And in that regard, they're just another guy with an opinion.
Yeah.
So is that what you see when you go to church, Dan? A bunch of illegals in the pews next to you?
I'm not going to respond to the silliness of that question. Here's the point that Bannon is making. There's a difference between the bishops inveighing with stentorian remarks about church doctrine, about the catechism, versus just public policy debates, which they are not experts at. There's nothing wisdom received from on high about their pronouncements on the minimum wage rate, on climatology, on immigration policy. So he's right about that. And by the way, if you don't think that there's a calculus about the future of the church made with selection and positions on policy, then you don't know much about the U.S. Catholic Conference of Bishops, and even the process by which Pope Francis was selected. He was selected from South America. It's not an accident. It's where the church sees its most growth potential. And, of course, the church is suffering a decline in membership, partly because of how badly it handled scandal among its ranks. So most of what Bannon said is correct. I wouldn't go so far as to call that an economic interest, but I would say in terms of their preservationist interests for the Catholic Church, that politics plays a part. There's no question about it. Cardinal Dolan did respond, saying that I'm not going to respond, that the Bannon statement is insulting and it's just so ridiculous that it doesn't merit a comment. I know somebody who will respond. She's our friend Michelle Malkin, of course, best-selling author, political commentator, senior editor for Conservative Review, as well as her own always provocative blog. Michelle Malkin, thanks so much for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me, Dan and Amy.
So what about Bannon's comment on the church and DACA?
I absolutely agree with it. And I, speaking as someone who is a Catholic, somebody who is the daughter of legal immigrants and naturalized American citizens to this country, and it is a plain fact that open borders benefit Catholic churches looking to fill their pews and their collection baskets. And for a long time, immigration restrictionists and enforcement advocates like myself have been alarmed at some of the policy statements and policy positions of the Catholic bishops. And it's one thing to show compassion to legal immigrants and legitimate refugees and asylees and those who are abused and exploited and mistreated by smugglers, but it's quite another to, as the Catholic elite leadership has done, support the systematic undermining and of an orderly immigration and entrance system that every sovereign country has a right and duty to enforce. And unfortunately, there are many open borders radicals, not just in the Catholic Church, but among many religious elites who oppose all limits and all eligibility requirements. I mean, this is what the religious sanctuary movement is all about. I mean, people think of sanctuary policy in the sense of police departments or liberal cities embracing non-enforcement and non-cooperation on immigration issues. But the roots of it, of course, are in the religious sanctuary movement. And this is an affront to Catholics who support and respect our immigration laws, to have the Vatican, which, I don't know if you remember this, guys, but they donated tens of thousands of dollars to build these shelters for Central American immigrants who were migrating to the U.S. during the Obama surge years, endangering people and encouraging them. And I absolutely agree with Steve Bannon that the bottom line there is for the church's own self-preservation and, yes, economic interest.
Well, it sounds like President Trump, I mean, who's now being considered a Democratic president, sided with Nancy Pelosi, who implored that he write a tweet or author a tweet saying for those DACA that are concerned about your status during the 6-month period, you have nothing to worry about, no action. So clearly, Donald Trump, if Congress doesn't move on this, I think he is to keep DACA alive and well. And I don't have a problem with that. Why does that bother you so much?
I have a problem with DACA because it is unconstitutional on its face, and it goes against every principle, not only of limited government, but of sovereignty. It's also a matter of priorities. And I wrote a column about this that you can read at my website at michellemalkin.com, thinking about the fundamental principles and message here that's involved in putting 800,000 illegal alien youth. And I think it's one of the open borders propaganda successes that these are cast as quote-unquote helpless children when many of them are nearing 30 now, that somehow they deserve immediate attention and immediate protection when they shouldn't have ever had this program and these government benefits in the first place. You can't have it both ways. And I think this is what needs to be said of the Democrat Party. On the one hand, they pose as the party of the working people. And this is the party that's been clamoring over low wages. They want to mandate minimum wage hikes. We need to be concerned about millennials, what's their future, what are their jobs. You can't have that as your number one priority. And then also have as your number one priority handing out nearly 1 million work permits to people who don't belong here in the first place. And so then they switch tactics. And the tactic is, well, they didn't come here of their own volition, and these were circumstances and unfortunate accidents of fate or history for them to have parents who chose to break the law. Well, whose responsibility is that? And why is it that they should come first over, say, law-abiding immigrants or people who are waiting in line around the country whose first act is to respect our sovereignty rather than to undermine it? And what about the ranchers on the border who've been waiting and waiting and waiting for years for the federal government to do something about their obligation to protect the borders. Why isn't building the wall the first priority here, rather than extending DACA protections unconstitutionally granted by Obama? It doesn't make any sense to me.
With respect to any potential DREAM Act being resuscitated in its previous form, or perhaps with Democrats feeling their oats at present even more aggressive, Byron York has a good piece in the Washington Examiner. You know, what's in the DREAM Act? Since we're talking about it and Congress may be leveling it back up, maybe we should take a look at the language in the bill, or at least the previous version. And one of the things he writes about specifically is criminal convictions. The DREAM Act of 2017 would exclude anyone convicted of, quote, any offense under federal or state law other than a state offense for which an essential element is the alien's immigration status. The point that Jessica Vaughn and others make is, well, that would grant status to people here illegally who've been convicted of felony ID fraud or other crimes that could be considered related to their immigration status. In addition to that, York makes the point that you could have one of these people who have DACA status. They could commit 3 offenses on 3 separate occasions, and they have to be convicted on all before that person is ineligible for legalization, misdemeanor convictions, 3 of them. And you know how the system works. I mean, you can be put on probation and so forth, that conviction expunged. 3 criminal convictions, misdemeanors, and then the other carve out of crimes related to your status here illegally.
Yes.
That provides a lot of bandwidth, doesn't it?
Well, yes, of course. And what it gives rise to it and what it sheds light on is the complete propaganda of otherwise law-abiding. Okay, that's always the phrase that you hear with the dreamers. And so then what does that mean? Well, Byron York does a good job of that. Let me give you another illustration of that. One of the leading public faces of the dreamer movement is Jose Antonio Vargas. I've debated this man. Mm-hmm. Nice guy. He is a Filipino who came here illegally, was essentially lied to by his grandparents about what his status was, and didn't discover that he was here illegally until he went and applied for a driver's license. And finally, his grandparents had to call up the truth. Otherwise law-abiding. Do you know what he did to remain in this country to this day as, you know, a flagrant illegal alien out of the shadows? He used a fake passport with a fake name and a fake green card and a bogus social security number. And then he committed perjury repeatedly on his I-9 employment eligibility forms. This is a man who worked for the Washington Post, who has been highly visible, flouting the law. And then when he was pursuing his journalism career goals, he ignored a legal counsel that told him that he should go back to the Philippines, make it right, and then reapply. Because there is a way for, even if you have violated the law, quote unquote, through no fault of your own, that if you go back to your home country and reset the buttons, you still can get in. He decided to ignore that advice, and instead he used a friend's address to obtain an Oregon driver's license under false pretenses, and then he used it to travel on planes, across the border, and this guy has been to the White House and been able to, like, subvert all of the Secret Service clearance when Obama was.
Well, right, and it's
otherwise law-abiding is a farce.
And it seems to me this is where there's a soft underbelly to this movement, particularly with everybody paying lip service to the idea that people who commit crimes other than their status, to continue this line of discussion, they should be deported. Most Americans agree with that. And so if you kind of get below the fold to the details on this with respect to the tolerance for criminal activity that could be part of this DREAM Act, that seems to me like a real weakness in terms of congressional passage.
Right, absolutely. And again, there's another pretense that somehow these are victimless crimes. If you've ever had your ID or credit card stolen, it's a nightmare that can last you your entire life trying to disentangle this. And there have been a couple of good stories on this of people who were victimized by illegal alien identity theft. And that's why you have to stop this devil's bargain. Okay, now I'm hearing that, we need to trade border wall funding for extension, or obviously what always happens is expansion of the Obama executive amnesty. I mean, haven't we learned from the Reagan 1986 amnesty that the open borders people will get everything that they want, and we will never get what we want, which is a return to an orderly immigration system without all of the loopholes that are being exploited. Every time you pass an amnesty, there's one thing that happens. You get more illegal immigration.
She is Michelle Malkin, best-selling author, senior editor of Conservative Review, also the always provocative write-ups on her website, michellemalkin.com. Michelle, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
You bet.
And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The more you listen,